And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Milner Anakin Nameembo, who writes, I was wondering, what exactly do talent agents do? What are the advantages and disadvantages of having one? Can one still make it in Hollywood without one? How does one get one? Please shed some light on this subject. Well, I'll tell you what, Milner, that's a great question, because we all hear about Hollywood agents, this person's agent. If you're ever talking about, Ryan Gosling, at some point somebody, well, Ryan Gosling must have a great agent. Or if you're ever talking about George Clooney, well, George Clooney, agents. And we always hear it. We always see them portrayed in movies and stuff like that. And it is a great question to ask. Well, hold on a second. What is it that agents actually do? Why do you need one? Is it difficult to get one? I will answer the last part of that question for you about whether or not it's difficult to get an agent. I can tell you this as somebody who has never had an agent, but I've known a lot of actor friends who have never been able to get past that one part of their career where they can actually get an agent to take them on, or at least a half decent one. So I can tell you, just from everybody I've talked to and known in the business, that getting a decent agent seems to be very, very difficult. I've had several friends who pursued acting in Hollywood for years and were never able to actually get a good, legit agent to take them on. It can be a hard thing. Now, as far as how important is it? What do they actually do? We are very lucky that we just happen to have somebody here who is an actress in this business. By the way, you'll be able to see her in King Richard here pretty soon with Will Smith, but who is an actress in this business who has had to have agents and stuff like that. So, Aaron, give us all a little bit of an education. Fundamentally speaking, number one, how tough is it to get an agent? But number two, as an actor yourself, fundamentally speaking, what is it an agent does for you, and why is it important for actors to have one, or not important? How would you answer that?
Well, first of all, this is pretty wild that this question is happening right now, because I actually just in the last several weeks, when I was talking about my career shit show, my team and I, we all decided that it was just time to kind of clean house and just eliminate everything. So I am currently in the process. I have meetings set up next week with agencies because I am looking for an agent. And so I'm actually in the midst of this process myself. And I have done this process many, many times over the past 2 decades of my career. And I have been with varying degrees of agencies. So I've fired a lot of them. I've gotten dropped by No, I've never gotten dropped, but I've definitely been with many different agencies. And so I understand this game very well. And this is something that really, there's so much information on this subject that we could talk for an hour about it. So John, I'm going to ask you to edit me when necessary, but to cover the very first and most important question, what is an agent? What do they do? And do you need one? An agency, your agent, by the terms of the ATA, the Association of Talent Agencies, which is the governing body of talent agencies. The role of a talent agent is to procure work for an actor. Essentially, they see something called the breakdowns, which is what casting directors put out. And essentially it'll say, oh, hey, we have, there's an episode of Ted Lasso and we're looking for, 20 something, male of any ethnicity to play, a new team captain, must have authentic British accent and must be more rough and tumble. They may describe stature, whatever. And then if I'm an agent, I will see that in the breakdown and go, oh, I represent these 5 actors and they fit that, a description. I'm going to submit them to the casting directors. And then if the casting director says, oh, I want to see your client, then I organize that audition for said actor. So that's the procurement of work. Also, if you're a more established actor, really your agent may just be doing what they call, if you're with ICM and partners, for example, ICM does not necessarily go out and procure a lot of work for their clients because their clients for the most part, are at a level where they're getting phone calls. Hey, I'd like to hire George Clooney. Hey, we have a script for, Zoe Saldana. Those are the types of people that are with these big agencies like ICM, CAA, William Morris Endeavor, et cetera, and UTA. As far as if they're needed, well, it depends on who you talk to. If you are an actor and you are doing non-union work, or you are in a very small market where you, like if you're in Atlanta or Austin or New Orleans, then yeah, you might be able to get by not having an agent because there's not a lot of casting directors there, and most of the casting directors, know most of the actors in town. But if you want to be a working actor in any of the major markets, you have to have an agent. There's no option not to. Otherwise, there's just no possible way that you'll be able to get any jobs. That's just the way that it's done.
Now, let me ask you this. I've talked to a number of writers who have said, like, you need to have a literary agent. Like, you have, because a lot of times, like, studios won't ever even look at your work. They'll go to like the agents or the representations of writers first. That's who they go to. And otherwise you just can't even get your work in front of people.
Well, the reason why that I want to interrupt you really quick on the literary side. The reason for that is very clear. I mean, is very legal, actually, is because they will not accept any unsolicited material. Because if I have a script that I send and then someone from their agency ends up putting out a product that's similar to the script that I send, I could always sue them and say, hey, you stole my idea. Whereas if it goes through agency, because I gave you the script 2 years earlier and blah, 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 even if they looked at it or not. They may not have even ever seen it. They may have just thrown it straight in the trash. But if I sent it to them, most agencies from a literary standpoint will not even accept any unsolicited material or something that does not come through an agent. So,
right, but could the same thing be said of like that? Maybe studios won't even, like, when they're looking for an actor, they go through the agencies. They don't just go 100%. Out in the wild, right? So that's why you got to absolutely have one.
And also, people go, well, I work all the time and I'm in blah, 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 and I'm like, right. But are you talking about a principal role or are you talking about background work? Yeah, you can be a background actor without having an agent. You don't need an agent for that. But if you want to have lines, if you want to be able to if you want to be a guest star, and especially if you want to be a series regular, you're not even going to be considered for something. And I see a lot of people getting a little upset about Atlanta, my comment on Atlanta. Yeah, I get it. Atlanta is hopping. There's a lot of stuff going on there. I've worked in Atlanta many times. It's very exciting. Atlanta still has a small fraction of the number of productions as Los Angeles and New York do. Do the numbers. I have, and Atlanta is great, but it's still considered a smaller market. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Now, as far as, how to get an agent, again, this is something that I could do an entire hour-long episode talking about. It varies depending on where you are at in your career. If you don't have a lot of credits, if you don't have a lot of guest stars or even co-stars on your resume, you're going to be seen as what's called developmental, meaning that that an agent is going to have to introduce you to people. If you are someone who has been around for a while, like I've been around for 20 years, every casting director in New York and LA knows who I am. That doesn't mean that they all love me. That doesn't mean they're all going to want to hire me, but I've been around a while. And when you're around a while, they know who you are. So I'm not considered developmental anymore. There once was a time that I was. And during that time, I had to get an agent that was willing to do that kind of work. The higher you go up the ladder of agencies, they're not going to be willing to do that kind of work. And so you don't want to be at an agency that is above where your level is. And I'll end on this. I will end on this because this, like I said, could be a very long conversation, but I know we have a lot of exciting things to talk about, and I don't want to take us away from those things. If you go to sign with an agent, if they want to sign with you, meaning that you have to want to work with them and they have to want to work with you, it's not like you can just pick up the phone and say, hey, I want you to work with me. Do not sign a contract. The contract doesn't protect you. it only protects them. And essentially what, and any of the decent agents will work with you on a handshake agreement, that you will pay 10% of whatever work they get you. You will pay that to them. A lot of times I find smaller agencies, and especially unscrupulous managers, will ask actors to sign a contract. And in the fine print, it will say that it automatically has a rollover clause in it. And what they're doing is they are taking every kid who gets off the bus, signing them to contracts, and then sitting on those contracts, hoping that one of those people will go out and get their own work so that they can turn around and go, hey, we have a contract. You owe me X, 10% of everything that you earn in perpetuity. It happened to Pam Anderson when she first got to Hollywood. She signed a contract with someone, totally forgot it, wasn't working with them for the longest time. I think ended up on Baywatch or ended up getting some work. And some ding dong weirdo agent from like 5 years before was like, we have a contract. And she had to do a whole thing to get out of it. So I definitely would be happy to answer any more questions in another, maybe if John wants, episode of something, or just shoot me a DM. And even though I hardly ever read those, I'll try to eventually get to it. I promise. So did you have any other questions about that, or have we talked enough about actors and agents
You got
today?
around, you mentioned that because a lot of people were wondering, it's like, well, how much do agents usually get? And you throw out the number there about 10%. They get about 10% of the work that they get you?
Not about 10%. 10%, not more, not less. The only way that an agent would take less than 10% is if you are splitting agencies, but that's something that is a very rare case, and it's not something that most people will ever encounter. But 10% is the industry norm. Managers will ask for 15%, but that's only if you don't have an agent as well. If a manager wants 15%, they should be your sole representation. If you have an agent as well, then the manager should only get 10%, because you should not be paying more than 20% of your income. Now, if you have a lawyer as well, which I do, then that's an additional 5%. So if you have an agent, a manager, and a lawyer, right there, you're paying 25% off the gross. That's not including a publicist, which is not a percentage, but is usually about $5,000 a month. And then if you have a business manager, that's another 5% of everything. So, it definitely adds up. As far as the advantages and disadvantages, there is every advantage, because a good agent is going to get you opportunities that you would never otherwise have on your own. The disadvantages, the only thing that they talk about, the only thing that people say when it comes to disadvantages of an agent is that you're having to pay percentages. But I say, hey, 10% of zero is zero. So I'd rather pay 10% of a lot of money and have a good agent working on my side. Any more questions? Let John know, and maybe he'll let me do a little spiel on this one day on my own. Okay, thanks.
All right. That was a great question, by the way, to send in. So thank you for that. Questions for you guys. Have you wondered about this stuff, about like actually how much money has to go out, getting an agent, the importance of agents, the roles of managers, the roles of publicists, the roles of the entertainment lawyers, the roles of the agents? Whatever you guys are thinking about that, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.